League of Legends is one of the biggest games in the world and the biggest esport in the world. That point might be contested by quite a few people, but I still stand on that ground. We are the biggest, we are the best. But within that big esport are several different regional leagues, including the LEC for Europe, the LPL for China, the LCK for Korea, and now the LTA for North America and South America, League of the Americas. We are just over 5 weeks away from it beginning in 2025, and it seems like there's going to be a lot of people that don't know A, that it's starting, and B, what it might be as people try to get new people into the league. So what is this video? What is this series going to be? Well, over the next 5 weeks, I'm going to attempt to break down everything I can around the business of the LTA and define what exactly it's trying to accomplish. Why could we not have continued as the LCS of old, but why do we need this new format? Because the truth is, we're trying to save a stalled out and potentially dying product. But I refuse to have that happen. So one of the things I think the LTA is struggling with right now is the right way to market themselves. There should have been more content out about all of this, but if nobody else is going to do it, I will. A video every week will help with the marketing and help raise awareness for this league as we get ready to ramp up in 2025. So consider this video part syllabus as well as lesson 1. Now, who am I, you might be asking? Who is this Joe Schmo trying to talk to me about all this stuff? Well, to explain my credentials, hi, for those that don't know me, my name is David Shynock. I'm a content creator within the League of Legends space, but that's not what I actually do full time. That right there is my master's in accounting from NYU. That is my undergraduate degree from a small school in North Carolina. I have spent the better part of the last 12 years of my life in a combination of both the golf industry, trying to become a PGA professional, of which I got my PGA certification, didn't officially certify it, so it sits inactive, so I know about the sports industry. Also went and passed all parts of the CPA exam, and currently my $400 application fee is still sitting with NASBA, but I haven't pursued it because I haven't needed it for my job. But I've worked in accounting and public finance, more specifically on the financial planning and analysis side, for about 5 to 6 years now, specifically in media and entertainment. So yeah, been around, both professionally and personally. I'm just interested in this stuff. So it's fun for me to explain to people how I think about all this stuff and why the LTA specifically is one of the most fascinating business ventures that we'll see in esports yet, because it's trying to solve a very, very big issue going on with the scene right now. First, what is the LTA? If you've stuck around this video long enough but still have no clue what it is, League of the Americas is basically the competitive circuit for North and South America. If you were to draw a line up and down the landmass that sits between the Pacific and the Atlantic Ocean, everything in between there is part of League of the Americas. North America has their own conference. South America has their own conference. We play over the course of 10 months, which are divided into 3 different splits, which have 3 bigger international events at the end of them. If you want a full breakdown of the format of the LTA for each split throughout the entire year, refer to this particular video right here. I will have it linked in the description down below. This will be a recurring theme of videos that I've already kind of talked about in much further depth that you'll be able to go in. So why is the LTA here? Why get rid of a brand that had a legacy for a long period of time, that was around, and it's a name that people were synonymous with for some of the best League of Legends in North America before the Europeans come in and meme that? Well, the answer is, at best, to save a product that was stalled out, and luckily viewership has maintained itself, but is not dropping anymore, or at worst, is still dropping and only took 1 year where it stabilized and is going to continue that trend going forward, which is still a concern regardless of what name is on it. Viewership for North America has been dwindling for years now. 2024 was the first time that we saw a little bit more of a stabilization than years past. A lot of that was due to the fact that we went to weekdays 2 years prior and then returned back to weekends last year. So honestly, 2025 is going to be the first real test to see how does viewership actually do year over year with mostly everything else the same, barring the name. But here's what you might be thinking. Well, viewership declines for sports all over the world, but we don't consider them to be potentially dying. Like the NFL sees a drop in ratings every now and then, and they're fine. They bounce back and are better than ever. Well, we've never really seen that bounce back in League of Legends. And also, that has to do with the money. So let's get into the business of the LTA. A big product like this obviously costs a lot to put on. You have to have tech and studio, that fancy product that you see on your screen that has all the lights, the production, all of that costs money. According to Avalie, in a podcast that she did, I want to say about a year or two ago now, obviously inflation hits this number since then, but it was around $50,000 a day to keep the lights on and operate everything in the studio. Now, whether that is inclusive of like the labor and people that work to put on the show, not the players, just like the tech and staff behind the scenes, that I don't know. I would assume it is. I would assume that that is an all-in number, but again, we're shooting in the dark here. And for this whole thing, obviously don't have access to financials like that. They're a private company. They're not going to reveal that to me. And I did actually email Riot to see if I can get an interview with Chris Greeley for this particular episode to see if we can dive into some of that. And I was swiftly rejected. Go figure. But hey, it was worth a shot. Can't say I didn't ask. But there are some other costs that go into putting on this product. And that also comes in the sense of your in-game goods, your merchandise, the other things that you make money on. There's a cost to the sale of those goods. For example, the LCS has put out merch in the past. I mean, it's all on their website, like the LCS Fresh stuff. There's a cost to produce all that. Now, the price that they set for the sale obviously will offset the majority of that, so it should be fine. But you got to order those things in bulk. There's a pretty heavy cost with that. Not as much as the tech in the studio, but it's not negligible. I still wanted to bring it up. On the general esports side, if you include esports skins, say the LTA was to go on to win Worlds one day, we get the revenue from that skin, but it also does cost money to produce that skin. Somebody had to design it. There's a tech cost associated with having that skin in the game, which you do bear anytime that one is sold. But ultimately, those costs I think are much smaller than the tech and studio costs, and probably smaller as well than marketing. As with anything in life, you have a great product. In this case, you have a fantastic entertainment league that provides a ton of value for fans that are looking for something to do and genuinely enjoy League of Legends from North America. But what if they don't know about it? How are you going to inform the general public? Well, that's what marketing costs are. That comes in the form of social media, of videos that they put out, of direct ads on YouTube to say, hey, right before you're about to watch your next Ludwig video of him failing to get out of silver, hey, why don't you come watch real pros play the game this Saturday and Sunday at 4 o'clock? Those ads, they cost money. Once you get to a certain point, word of mouth is definitely enough, but even the biggest companies in the world who have all the biggest word of mouth, they still pay for marketing. So it does cost to be able to keep your name involved in the conversation. Now, there's also one expense that teams specifically have to worry about, and that is the cost of labor, aka their players, the salaries. As much as Riot has to worry about the cost of people to put on the show, guess what? The superstars themselves, they cost money. That I'm saving for a whole separate video. But the expenses are never really the fun part, the part that people care about. That comes in the form of revenue. Ultimately, with most things in life and most people in business, how you make your money is the fun and exciting part of all this. But I want to take us through a quick thought experiment. I'm going to give you some questions. We're going to do a little pop quiz to see how well you know your entertainment money. Can you name what organization reports a total of $10.9 billion of revenue each and every year? This number is notably as of 2022. And 47% of that comes from national revenue, aka media rights. Whenever an entertainment product signs a deal with somebody like ABC, CBS, TNT, Fox, you name it, all of them pay money to these leagues to be able to have their product so that they get more people to sign up and pay for their platform. In addition to that, 26% of that $10.9 billion comes from ticket and suite sales. People attending this actual event or this actual organization's events each and every day, or at least portions of the year. You also have 12% of team sponsorships, aka the people that they'll like put the logo on their chest around the places that they hold these events. There's intrinsic value of being able to see, hey, this brand is partnered with this team, this group, this entertainment product. Yeah, you know what? I'm in the need for one of those things as well. I might as well go to them instead of a different competitor. Local media, 13%. Yeah, local TV rights are actually a part of this, believe it or not. And 8%, including concessions and parking, aka like that hot dog and drink that you're gonna buy for $35 at Madison Square Garden or the Barclays Center. Barclays Center is way more egregious than Madison Square Garden. Yep, that's part of it. What organization is this? Final guess? The answer, the NBA. Basketball. Let's do example number 2. Same categories, same breakout, but much different mix. The leading category here, ticket sales and suites, actual people attending the event in person. Second to that comes national revenue, aka your media rights. Local media actually taking up a larger portion of this, so your regional products, pretty important here. Only 11% for team sponsorships, and just barely behind that is concessions. So this group makes more money off of concessions than the NBA and has more people show up consistently, or at least it's able to make up more of its $10.9 billion of revenue, the exact same as the NBA, just from people showing up to events. That answer? Major League Baseball, a sport that I've heard from so many people is dying, but clearly is not. And finally, the big one. This should be really obvious if you stop and think about it for a little bit. If you're not American, this is your hint that you might not get it. 68% media rights and national revenue. The overwhelming majority, with 17% being the closest category after that, being seats and suites, and every other category being under 10%. And the revenue? Get this, $18.7 billion, the largest sport in the United States by revenue that exists. The answer should be obvious, the NFL. Now, why do I bring these up when talking about the LTA and League of Legends? Well, the answer is from the league side. That whole chunk that you're seeing for the NFL, the majority of what makes them their revenue, the majority for the NBA, and just barely under for the MLB, it doesn't exist. There are no media rights for esports right now. It is not a viable way to sustainability and profitability. That second category, tickets, we have one stadium event per year for each league. International events do not count towards this. We're just talking about a domestic product. Local media doesn't exist. Concessions, parking, well, if you don't have ticket sales all that much, I mean, that's not going to be a major part of your revenue there. So the only thing that this league has going for it is team sponsorships, our league partnerships and sponsorships as well. We are entirely reliant on that model for now because currently there's nothing else that exists. But that's also part of the reason why the LTA was formed in the first place, was to add another slice to this pie, which is in-game revenue. It is a esports specific version of merchandise that could ultimately change the makeup of this pie entirely, as we've seen by the fact that the winners of the biggest tournament each and every year for League of Legends do get their own skin, and it brings in millions for the players alone, let alone the cut for Riot and everybody else. So that is an unknown portion of the revenue pool that is just going to be starting this year if you believe that Riot's going to be putting out more merchandise in-game. And in order to do that, they needed to consolidate the amount of teams that exist internationally, which is why for League of the Americas, we only have 16 teams, whereas both of these leagues, both North and South Conference independently over the last 5 years or so, have typically had 20 teams. We're reducing the amount of people involved. That way it's easier for Riot to try and introduce that merchandise category to try and boost revenues here a little bit, because they still have to worry about every other region as well, but that's a much wider topic. We're focusing on the LTA. So if you're like me and you want to see the LTA and the business of League of Legends esports in North America succeed, what are the things that we should be paying attention to in the upcoming years, and what would deem the LTA a success? What are the metrics that we are trying to judge all this by? Well, as much as Riot doesn't want you to focus on this part, you kind of have to, and that's viewership. In a world where we don't have media rights, where we don't have anything else going for us, viewership is going to be the ultimate tie to sponsorship revenue, which is that primary driver of our revenue pool from earlier. The higher the viewership, the higher the sponsorship revenue, and it seems like our costs for the most part are stable. Marketing is going to be a little bit more variable than most. Labor is on the teams more than anything else. Everything I think for the LTA should be unionized at this point in terms of like their day-to-day workers, so things should be as bare bones as they're going to get. The second, we already mentioned it, in-game merchandise. If Riot actually does introduce those new things, sure, maybe viewership doesn't matter. Maybe we have a larger portion of a smaller audience actually buy these goods, of which then things can become more profitable and you don't have to worry about the viewership numbers as much. But until those goods are introduced, we can't really focus on that part of it yet. Events, I mean, we have one per year now. Maybe we can eventually have more. That's another one to keep an eye on as time goes on. If we end up having more, it means that the demand for more events is there, so that's a good thing. And international performance, whether we like it or not, our ability to contest the likes of Korea and China and Europe on the international stage actually does tie into the whole viewership thing. It drives popularity. It makes people want to pay attention. If we just keep getting slapped the entire time, well, unfortunately, historically, North America has never been a region that's gotten a lot of viewership whenever we get beat over and over again. We aren't the French or the Brazilians in America, at least culture here. We value winners. And when you're not winning or at least contending, people start to tune out. So unfortunately, international performance is something we have to pay attention to pretty closely. But will this whole thing work? Will we be able to balance this revenue and expense problem? Will we be able to make this all succeed long term and turn around viewership? Well, the answer, we have no clue. It's impossible to predict, but Riot's making this Hail Mary move for a reason. You don't get rid of 10 years of branding unless you're at least a little bit desperate. And over the next 4 weeks, I'm going to deep dive into 4 different segments of this entire piece to give them a little bit more information. Because again, this was just a very high level summary of what is to come in the conversations to be had. First up, starting next week, I want to introduce our partners in all of this. Not the partners for this video, but the partners of the North, aka the South, the 8 teams that make up the Southern Conference that, quite honestly, even as a Northern person, I don't know much about. So I figure, why not bring somebody that actually knows about the South and have them introduce all of us to all the teams, the cultures, you name it. You want to know who the different owners are within the equity that is this entire LTA so that we can move forward and make the right decisions together. After that, we've got the labor itself, the players. Who are the big names that you need to know about within the LTA? How much, I mean, we'll never know how much they're unfortunately getting paid. Salaries are not public for us, but you want to see what kind of value these guys are driving. If we're paying them so much, are we getting back every penny? Like, is it worth the contracts that we are signing? Is our labor appropriate? After that, we're going to take a dive into marketing with Cloud9's Portillo. I'm still trying to work on the best time that I can chat with him, so I'm not sure when exactly that episode. That might have to be saved for last just because I'm going to be going home for Christmas. I think he might be traveling as well. But nevertheless, we will talk about marketing and social media management from the team side. And finally, we are going to talk about that studio cost, and more specifically, the people that actually influence the broadcast. That includes the broadcast talent, that includes co-streamers and beyond, the people that, quite honestly, we consume this entire product through. I'm not quite sure how long this individual video ended up being, but I hope it provided a good summary of like the business of the LTA and why all this is happening and some of the questions that we need to ask going forward. We'll continue to take deep dives, but I figured this might be a good introduction. Plus, it gives us a weekly chance to talk about the league that A, I love most, B, we need to be talking about more in the public space, and C, well, again, marketing is one key pillar of this, and I'm willing to bet that not a lot of people still know that the LCS branding swapped to the LTA, no matter how many announcements Riot made. So maybe additional videos will help with the marketing of this. I'll see you next week.